A black boy was treated like a criminal at the bank, until his account was verified. "Excuse me, sir. I need to access my account." A black boy in scuffed Converse sneakers stood at the polished counter, 12 years old, faded jeans with patches at the knees, second-hand jacket hanging loose on his thin shoulders, worn backpack clutched in both hands. The bank manager froze, his eyes traveling from Noah's shoes to his face, slowly, deliberately, then his mouth twisted into a cold smirk. "Access your account." His voice carried across the gleaming lobby of Metropolitan Trust Bank, sharp enough to turn heads. "This is Metropolitan Trust, not a community center. What are you doing in here?" Stephen Caldwell moved closer, his tailored navy suit and Italian leather shoes a stark contrast to the boy standing before him. His cologne was expensive. His expression was contempt. "Look at those shoes. Look at those clothes." He shook his head slowly, like a teacher disappointed in a failing student. "Another kid from the projects trying to pull something. You people always think you can just walk into places you don't belong." He raised his voice. "Get out before I have security remove you. We serve legitimate customers here, not..." He paused, his eyes sweeping over Noah again. "Not kids who should be in school." Before we dive deep into this jaw-dropping story, quick pause. Drop a comment below and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. I love seeing our global Curious Chronicles family light up the map. If you're already hooked and craving more inspiring and captivating stories that poke curiosity like this one, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. We drop beautiful, heart-pounding stories every week that you seriously don't want to miss, so let's dive right into it. The security guard standing near the entrance straightened, hand moving to his radio. A woman in a designer coat whispered loudly to her husband. "Can you believe this? In the middle of the day." Quiet laughter spread through the lobby, uncomfortable, judgmental, directed at one 12-year-old boy. No one stepped forward. Not a single person. But none of them, not Stephen Caldwell in his $1,000 suit, not the wealthy customers with their premium accounts, not the security guard with his finger on the radio button, could have imagined what would happen within the hour. Stephen Caldwell himself would be standing in that same lobby, his career destroyed, begging not for his job but for the chance to explain himself. Noah Williams didn't run. He didn't cry. He stood exactly where he was, the way Aunt Diane taught him. "Sir, I have an account here." His voice was quiet but steady. "My father opened it for me before he deployed. He passed away 8 months ago. He left me this." Noah held up a worn envelope, the edges soft from being carried in his backpack. Inside were documents, an account card, a letter his father had written him before his final deployment. Stephen Caldwell's eyebrows shot up in theatrical disbelief. "Your father?" He looked around at the watching customers, performing for an audience that had already decided who to believe. "Let me guess. He's also a secret millionaire who bought you a trust fund and a yacht." More laughter. The customers were enjoying the show. Jennifer Hayes, the head teller, leaned over her station, her perfectly manicured nails tapping the counter. "Mr. Caldwell, should I call the police? This looks like identity theft." Caldwell waved a dismissive hand. "Not yet. Let's see what kind of story he's trying to sell us first." He reached out and snatched the envelope from Noah's hands, yanking the documents out with rough, careless movements. His eyes scanned them with barely concealed irritation. Then he saw the card. Black plastic. Premium tier. Military trust designation. The kind of account issued only to service members with substantial death benefits and survivor provisions. For just a moment, something changed in Stephen Caldwell's expression. Uncertainty. Maybe even the beginning of doubt. But prejudice is a powerful thing. It can make you see what you expect to see, even when the truth is staring you in the face. Caldwell shook off the doubt like water off a coat. "Where did you steal this?" He held up the card, displaying it to the lobby like a prosecutor presenting evidence. "A black kid from God knows where with a military trust card?" You really think anyone's going to believe this belongs to you? Noah's hands began to shake. I didn't steal anything. It's mine. My dad. Your dad? Your dad what? Caldwell's voice was mocking, cruel. Gave you this before he went to his imaginary job at his imaginary military base. He tossed the card onto the marble counter. It slid across the surface with a sharp plastic sound. I've been in banking for 12 years. Kid. I know fraud when I see it. He pointed to the far corner of the lobby, near the hallway that led to the bathrooms, near the janitor's supply closet, the least dignified seats in the entire building. Sit over there. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone. I'm calling headquarters to verify this so-called account. And when they confirm it's stolen, the police will be waiting for you. Noah walked to the corner slowly, his backpack heavy on his shoulders, each step echoing in the silent lobby. He sat on the hard wooden bench, isolated, surrounded by marble and crystal chandeliers and wealth that seemed to mock his scuffed sneakers. He unzipped his backpack and pulled out his father's letter, the one Aunt Diane had given him that morning. The lobby watched him. No one approached. No one asked if he was okay. He was alone in a room full of people. And the clock on the wall ticked forward, second by second, toward the moment when everything would change. Noah Williams pushed through the heavy glass doors of Metropolitan Trust Bank at exactly 12:47 p.m., his heart hammering against his ribs like it was trying to escape. The envelope Aunt Diane had given him that morning felt like it weighed 100 pounds in his hands, even though it was just paper, just documents, just proof of something he still didn't fully understand. The lobby opened before him like a cathedral of wealth. Marble floors stretched in all directions, polished so thoroughly that Noah could see his own reflection staring back up at him. A 12-year-old boy in clothes that didn't fit, shoes that had seen better years, a backpack with one broken zipper. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings so high they made him feel small, insignificant, like an ant that had wandered into a palace by mistake. Everything gleamed. Everything whispered money in a language Noah had never learned to speak. He took a breath and stepped forward. His sneakers squeaked against the marble, a sound so loud in the hushed space that it might as well have been a scream. Just like Aunt Diane said. Walk to the counter. Show them the card. They'll help you. But the moment Noah crossed the threshold, he felt it, the shift in the air, the way conversation seemed to pause mid-sentence, the way eyes turned toward him like searchlights tracking an intruder. A woman in a cream-colored coat and pearls glanced up from her phone. Her gaze traveled from Noah's face to his shoes and back again. She took a small step to the side, pulling her designer purse closer to her body. An elderly man in a three-piece suit lowered his newspaper just enough to stare. His expression was the kind you'd give a stray dog that had wandered into a five-star restaurant. Two businessmen near the investment services desk stopped their conversation entirely. One of them whispered something to the other. Both of them looked at Noah. Neither of them smiled. Noah felt heat crawling up his neck. He gripped the envelope tighter, his palms starting to sweat against the paper. He forced himself to keep walking, forced his feet to move even though every instinct screamed at him to turn around and leave. Dad would have walked in here like he owned the place. Dad wouldn't have been scared. But his dad wasn't here. His dad was in a flag-draped box in Arlington National Cemetery, and Noah was alone. He approached the main counter where three tellers sat behind glass partitions. The one closest to him, a young woman with blonde hair pulled into a tight bun, looked up and smiled, a practiced, professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Good afternoon. How can I?" "Jennifer." The voice cut through the lobby like a blade, sharp and commanding. The teller's smile vanished instantly. She straightened in her chair, her hands folding neatly on the counter as her eyes shifted past Noah to someone behind him. Noah turned. Stephen Caldwell stood in the doorway of a glass-walled office, and everything about him radiated authority. His navy suit was tailored so perfectly it looked like it had been painted on. His tie was silk, his watch was gold, his shoes were polished to a mirror shine. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a kind of confident posture that came from years of being the most important person in every room he entered. And he was looking at Noah the way someone might look at garbage that had blown in through an open door. Caldwell strode across the lobby, his footsteps purposeful and loud. Customers stepped aside to let him pass. He moved like a man on a mission, and that mission was clearly Noah. "I'll handle this." He said it to Jennifer, but his eyes never left Noah's face. The teller nodded quickly and returned to her computer screen, clearly relieved to be dismissed. Caldwell stopped 3 feet away from Noah. Up close, he was even more intimidating, 6 feet tall at least, with hard eyes and a jaw that looked like it had been carved from stone. He crossed his arms over his chest and tilted his head slightly, studying Noah the way a scientist might study something under a microscope. The silence stretched. Noah could hear his own breathing, could feel the weight of every eye in the lobby pressing down on him. Finally, Caldwell spoke. "Can I help you?" 4 words. That's all it was. But the tone carried everything else. The suspicion, the contempt, the unspoken assumption that Noah didn't belong here and whatever he was about to say would be a lie. Noah's throat went dry. He swallowed hard, trying to find his voice. "Yes, sir. I need to access my account. My aunt said I should come here and—" "Your account?" Caldwell's eyebrows rose slowly, deliberately. He glanced around the lobby, making sure everyone was watching, making sure everyone could hear. "You have an account. Here. At Metropolitan Trust." It wasn't a question. It was mockery wrapped in words. Noah felt his face burning, but he forced himself to nod. "Yes, sir. My father opened it before." "How old are you?" 12, sir, but—" 12. Caldwell let the word hang in the air like an accusation. He looked Noah up and down again, slower this time, his gaze lingering on every detail. The frayed cuff of Noah's jacket, the patch on his jeans, the scuffed toes of his sneakers. 12 years old. Walking into one of the most prestigious financial institutions in the state. Claiming to have an account. He uncrossed his arms and took a step closer. Noah could smell his cologne now, something expensive and sharp that made Noah's nose itch. "Let me guess. You're here to make a withdrawal? Maybe transfer some funds? Perhaps you'd like to discuss your investment portfolio." Laughter rippled through the lobby. Not loud, but enough. Enough to make Noah feel like the walls were closing in. "No, sir, I just need to verify the account. My aunt said." "Your aunt said?" Caldwell's smile was cold and cruel. "And where is your aunt right now? Why isn't she here with you?" She's at work. She's a doctor. She had surgery this morning, but she gave me permission to come during lunch and—" "A doctor?" The mocking tone intensified. "Of course she is. And I suppose your uncle is a lawyer? Your cousin's a CEO?" More laughter. Someone behind Noah whispered, "Unbelievable." Noah's hands trembled as he held up the envelope. "Sir, I have the documents right here. I have the account card. I can show you." Caldwell's expression shifted. The mockery disappeared, replaced by something harder, colder. "You have documents. And a card." He stepped even closer, invading Noah's space, forcing the boy to tilt his head back to maintain eye contact. "Where did you get them?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. And Noah realized, with a sickening drop in his stomach, that nothing he said was going to matter. Because Stephen Caldwell had already decided who Noah was the moment he walked through those doors. Noah's voice came out smaller than he intended, barely above a whisper. "My father left it to me, sir, before he deployed. He passed away in Afghanistan 8 months ago, and my aunt said I should come verify the account so we can." "Stop." Caldwell held up one hand, his face twisting into an expression of exaggerated patience, like a parent dealing with a child's obvious lie. "Stop right there. Your father, a soldier, opened an account here. For you." He turned to address the lobby, raising his voice so everyone could hear. Does anyone else find this story a little too convenient? A few customers nodded. Others exchanged knowing glances. Noah felt like he was drowning in front of an audience that had already decided not to throw him a rope. Caldwell turned back to Noah, his eyes cold and sharp. "ID, let me see your identification." Noah's hand shook as he unzipped his backpack. He fumbled through the front pocket, past his house keys and his lunch money, until his fingers closed around the plastic card. He pulled it out and held it toward Caldwell. "I have my school ID," my aunt said. Caldwell snatched the card from Noah's hand so fast the boy flinched. The manager held it up to the light, squinting at it like he was examining counterfeit money. "Lincoln Middle School." He read it aloud, mockery dripping from every word. "Student ID. Expires June 2026. He lowered the card and stared at Noah with undisguised contempt. "This is a joke, right? You walk into Metropolitan Trust Bank, claim to have an account, and your identification is a middle school student ID. It's all I have, sir. I'm 12. I don't have a driver's license or—" "Exactly." Caldwell cut him off, his voice rising. "You're 12. You're a child. And you expect me to believe you have a legitimate account at this institution based on a piece of plastic from a public school?" Noah's chest tightened. He could feel tears building behind his eyes, hot and insistent, but he refused to let them fall. "Not here. Not in front of all these people. Sir, I have the account card. It's in the envelope. My father's name is on the account, and so is mine. If you just look." "Fine." Caldwell thrust his hand out impatiently. "Show me this magical account card." Noah's fingers trembled as he opened the envelope. Inside were three things: a folded letter in his father's handwriting, a bank statement from 3 months ago, and the card. The card was black plastic with silver lettering, Metropolitan Trust Military Survivor Account. Noah pulled it out carefully, like it was made of glass, and held it toward Caldwell. For a moment, everything stopped. Caldwell took the card, and Noah watched his expression shift. The mockery faltered. His eyes narrowed as he read the text, turned the card over, examined the magnetic strip and the embossed numbers. Account #4177-8829-3304 Noah Williams, Beneficiary Military Death Benefit Trust. The lobby had gone completely silent. Even the soft classical music playing through the speakers seemed to have faded into nothing. Everyone was watching. Caldwell's jaw worked. His fingers tightened around the card. For just a second, one brief, fleeting second, something that looked like doubt crossed his face. Then it vanished. "Where did you steal this?" The question exploded into the silence like a gunshot. Customers gasped. The security guard near the door straightened, his hand moving instinctively toward his belt. Noah's mouth fell open. I didn't steal anything. That's mine. My name is on it. You can see. I can see exactly what this is." Caldwell held the card up high, displaying it to the entire lobby like a prosecutor presenting evidence to a jury. A premium account card. Military designation. And somehow, this kid. He gestured at Noah with his free hand, contempt radiating from every movement. This 12-year-old in second-hand clothes and shoes that look like they came from a dumpster expects me to believe it belongs to him. My father opened it. Noah's voice cracked, desperation bleeding through. He was a ranger. He died saving his unit. The army sent my aunt the paperwork, and she said I needed to come here too. Who put you up to this? Caldwell moved closer, looming over Noah, using his height and his authority like weapons. Who gave you this card? Was it someone on the street? Did they promise you money if you came in here and played this little game? No one put me up to anything. It's my account. What's the scam? Caldwell was shouting now, his face reddening with anger, or maybe it was performance. Maybe he was enjoying this. You walk in here dressed like a homeless kid. You pull out documents and a card that clearly don't belong to you, and you think I'm just going to hand over access to an account? What were you planning to do? Empty it? Transfer the funds? Run some kind of identity theft scheme? Noah's vision blurred. The tears he'd been fighting finally won. I'm not trying to steal anything. My dad saved this money for me. He wanted me to go to college. He wrote me a letter before he died, and he said, I don't care what he said. Caldwell slammed his hand down on the counter. The sharp crack echoed through the lobby like a whip. Several customers jumped. Jennifer, the teller, pressed herself back in her chair. I don't care about your sob story. I don't care about your excuses. I care about facts. He turned to Jennifer, still holding Noah's card in his raised hand. This card is flagged as stolen. Pull up the fraud report. Jennifer's eyes widened. But sir, I don't see any. Pull it up. She turned to her computer, her fingers hovering uncertainly over the keyboard. Caldwell turned back to Noah, and his smile was vicious. You want to know what I think? I think you found this card. Maybe in a parking lot. Maybe you took it from someone's mailbox. And you thought you could waltz in here and fool us because we'd feel sorry for you. Poor little black boy with his sad story about his dead soldier daddy. Each word landed like a punch. Noah's knees felt weak. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the envelope. Please, he whispered. Please just check the account. Just look it up. You'll see my name. You'll see. I'm not checking anything. Caldwell's voice dropped to something low and dangerous. Because I don't need to. I know exactly what you are. I've seen 100 kids like you. Coming in here, trying to take what doesn't belong to you. Thinking we owe you something. He leaned down until his face was level with Noah's, so close the boy could see the pores on his skin, could smell the coffee on his breath. We don't owe you anything. He straightened and turned to the security guard. Marcus, call the police. We've got an attempted fraud situation here. The security guard reached for his radio, and Noah felt the floor drop out from under him. His father's card was in Caldwell's hand. His father's letter was in the envelope. His father's sacrifice, every dollar saved, every deployment bonus set aside, every hope for his son's future, was about to be dismissed as a lie. The police were coming. And no one in this entire marble lobby full of witnesses was going to help him. The security guard's hand froze on his radio. He looked at Noah, then at Caldwell, uncertainty flickering across his face. Sir, are you sure we should? Did I stutter, Marcus? Caldwell's voice cracked like a whip. Call them. Now. By now, the entire bank had stopped functioning. No one was at the ATMs. No one was filling out deposit slips. Every teller station had gone silent. Every conversation had died mid-sentence. They were all watching. A crowd had formed in a loose semicircle around Noah and Caldwell, at least 20 people, maybe more. Customers who had been conducting business. Employees who had emerged from back offices. Even the janitor had stopped mopping and stood near the far wall, his mop handle gripped in both hands. Noah's eyes swept across their faces, desperate, searching for someone, anyone, who looked like they might help. Someone who would say this was wrong. Someone who would tell Caldwell to just check the account, just look at the computer, just give the boy a chance. But every face he met turned away. A woman in a burgundy business suit made eye contact with Noah for just a second. Her expression softened. Something that might have been sympathy, might have been pity. Her mouth opened slightly, like she was about to speak. Then her colleague touched her elbow and whispered something. The woman's face hardened. She turned her back and walked toward the exit. Near the investment services desk, an elderly woman with silver hair and kind eyes clutched her purse to her chest. She was staring at Noah, her forehead creased with concern. She took a half step forward, her lips parting. Excuse me, maybe we should. Her husband grabbed her arm, his grip firm. "Helen, don't." He pulled her back, his voice low but urgent. "It's not our business. Let them handle it." The woman looked torn, her eyes still on Noah, but she let herself be led away. They disappeared through the glass doors without looking back. Noah felt something break inside his chest. A young man in his 20s, dressed in startup casual, hoodie, jeans, expensive sneakers, had his phone out. He was recording, the camera pointed directly at Noah and Caldwell. The red recording light blinked steadily. For a moment, Noah felt a surge of hope. Someone was documenting this. Someone would see what was happening. Someone would care. But the young man just stood there, filming, his face blank and detached. He wasn't going to intervene. He wasn't going to speak up. He was just going to watch, record, and maybe post it later with a caption about how messed up the world was. Noah's voice came out broken and desperate. "Please. Someone. I'm telling the truth. I'm not lying. If someone would just save your breath, kid." Caldwell's voice boomed across the lobby, silencing Noah instantly. The manager was feeding off the attention now, growing larger, more confident with every second that passed without challenge. He held Noah's card high above his head, turning in a slow circle so everyone could see it. "This is what fraud looks like, people." His voice carried the authority of a professor lecturing a classroom. "They're getting younger every year. More sophisticated. More manipulative. They know how to play on your sympathy, how to tell you stories that pull at your heartstrings." He turned to face Noah directly, his expression a mixture of disgust and theatrical disappointment. "Dead father. Military service. Trust fund for college." He shook his head slowly. "It's textbook. They workshop these stories. They practice them. And they count on good people being too polite to call them out." A businessman near the loan department nodded vigorously. "Exactly right. You can't be soft with these people. They see kindness as weakness." A woman in yoga clothes crossed her arms. "I saw a news report about this. There are organized rings that train children to do this. They target banks, grocery stores, anywhere with money." The murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd like a wave. They were building their own narrative now, each person adding their piece to the story, constructing a version of reality where Noah was the villain and Caldwell was the hero protecting them all. Noah's face burned with shame so intense it felt like his skin was on fire. His hands shook uncontrollably, the envelope crumpling in his grip. Tears streamed down his cheeks, and he didn't even try to wipe them away anymore. "My father's name was Marcus Williams," he choked out, his voice barely audible over the murmuring crowd. "He was a sergeant. He served 3 tours. He died on February 14th last year. Valentine's Day. He—" "Enough." Caldwell's shout made Noah flinch so hard he stumbled backward. Enough with the story. Enough with the performance. He advanced on Noah, and the boy had nowhere to go. His back hit the marble counter. "You think you're the first kid to walk in here with a sob story? You think we haven't seen every trick in the book?" He thrust the card toward Noah's face, so close the boy could see his own name embossed on the black plastic. Proof, right there, proof that he was telling the truth. But Caldwell wasn't looking at the name. "This card doesn't belong to you. This account doesn't belong to you. And if you had any decency, any sense of right and wrong, you'd admit it right now." Jennifer, the teller, leaned toward her colleague and whispered, just loud enough for Noah to hear, "I feel bad for him, but Mr. Caldwell's right. How does a kid like that get a military trust account? It doesn't make sense." The colleague nodded. "Probably stolen from a mailbox. That's how they usually do it." Noah's knees buckled. He grabbed the edge of the counter to keep from falling. "Please," he whispered. "Please just look up the account number. 4177-8829-3304. Just type it in. You'll see. You'll see my name. You'll see my dad's name. You'll see. Marcus. Caldwell ignored Noah completely, speaking over him like he didn't exist. Stop wasting time and make the call. The security guard finally lifted his radio to his mouth, his expression apologetic but resigned. Dispatch, this is Marcus at Metropolitan Trust, 4th and Main. We need a unit for a possible 10 to 16. Juvenile, approximately 12 years old, suspected fraud and theft. The radio crackled. Copy that, Marcus. Unit en route. ETA 6 minutes. 6 minutes. The police were coming. Noah looked around the lobby one more time, his vision blurred by tears, desperately searching the faces of the crowd for someone who would help. He saw judgment. He saw discomfort. He saw people pulling out their phones to check the time, eager for this drama to end so they could get back to their banking. But he didn't see help. He didn't see mercy. The young man with the phone was still recording, his thumb hovering over the screen, probably already composing a caption. The elderly woman who had almost spoken up was gone. The businessman was checking his watch, irritated by the delay. And Stephen Caldwell stood in the center of it all, Noah's card still gripped in his hand like a trophy, his expression one of smug satisfaction. Noah sank down to the floor, his back against the counter, his arms wrapped around his knees. The envelope fell from his hands, spilling its contents across the marble. His father's letter, the bank statement, everything his dad had left him. Caldwell stepped over the papers without even looking down. 6 minutes, kid. 6 minutes until the real authorities get here. And when they do, you're going to wish you'd told the truth from the beginning. Noah pressed his forehead against his knees and finally let himself sob. And the crowd watched in silence. The 6 minutes felt like 6 hours. Noah remained on the floor, his body curled into itself, shoulders shaking with sobs he couldn't control anymore. The marble was cold beneath him, leaching the warmth from his body. His father's letter lay crumpled near his knee, the careful handwriting his dad had labored over now smudged with Noah's fingerprints and tears. The lobby had resumed a semblance of normal activity. Tellers called out next customer, please, in careful, professional voices. The classical music drifted back through the speakers. People stepped around Noah like he was part of the furniture, an unfortunate obstacle between them and their transactions. Caldwell stood near the investment desk, arms crossed, checking his watch every 30 seconds. Waiting. Then the glass doors opened, and 2 police officers walked in. Noah's head shot up. His breath caught in his throat. But Caldwell moved first, striding across the lobby with his hand extended, his professional smile firmly in place. Officers, thank you for coming so quickly. I'm Stephen Caldwell, branch manager. The older officer, a broad-shouldered man with gray at his temples and tired eyes, shook Caldwell's hand. Officer Davis. This is Officer Chen. We got a call about a juvenile and possible fraud. That's correct. Caldwell turned and pointed at Noah, still on the floor, still surrounded by scattered papers. That boy came in here approximately 20 minutes ago claiming to have an account. When I asked for proper identification and tried to verify his story, he became evasive. He's in possession of what I believe is a stolen account card. Officer Chen, younger and sharper featured, pulled out a notepad. A stolen card? Has the owner reported it missing? Not yet, but... Then how do you know it's stolen? The question hung in the air for a moment. Caldwell's jaw tightened. Officer, I've been in banking for 12 years. I know my clientele. That boy. He gestured at Noah again, his voice taking on a harder edge. Does not fit the profile of a Metropolitan Trust account holder. Look at him. Look at his clothes. Use your common sense. Officer Davis's expression remained neutral, but something shifted in his eyes. He looked at Noah, really looked at him, a 12-year-old boy in second-hand clothes, sitting on the floor crying, surrounded by papers. Son, can you stand up for me? Noah scrambled to his feet, his legs unsteady. He wiped at his face with his sleeve, trying to pull himself together. Yes, sir. What's your name? Noah Williams, sir. And why are you here today, Noah? Officer, I really don't think. Mr. Caldwell. Davis's voice cut through the manager's interruption like a knife. I'm talking to the boy. Please step back. Caldwell's face flushed red, but he moved backward, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. Noah's voice trembled as he spoke. My father opened an account for me before he deployed. He died 8 months ago in Afghanistan. My aunt gave me permission to come here during lunch to verify the account so we could. His lying. Caldwell couldn't help himself. He showed up with a story about a dead soldier father and a trust fund. It's clearly a scam. I have the card right here. He pulled Noah's card from his pocket and held it out to Officer Davis. The officer took it, examined it carefully, turning it over in his hands. This has the boy's name on it. Which proves nothing. These cards can be counterfeited, or stolen from mailboxes before the legitimate account holder receives them. Officer Chen stepped forward. Did you run the account number in your system to verify? Silence. Caldwell's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. I didn't feel it was necessary. The situation was obviously. You didn't check the account. Chen's voice was flat, disbelieving. You called the police on a 12-year-old child for suspected fraud, but you didn't actually verify whether or not the account exists. I used my professional judgment. Your professional judgment. Davis handed the card back to Caldwell, his expression hardening. Your professional judgment was to accuse a child of a crime without a single piece of evidence. Now wait just a minute. No, you wait. Davis's voice carried authority that made Caldwell take an involuntary step backward. I want you to walk over to that computer right now and look up that account number. And if it turns out this boy is telling the truth, we're going to have a very different conversation. The lobby had gone silent again. Every eye was on Caldwell. The manager's face had gone from red to pale. His hands shook slightly as he walked to Jennifer's station. Pull up account 4177-8829-3304. Jennifer's fingers flew across the keyboard. The monitor flickered. And then her face went white. Mr. Caldwell, it's real. It's a military survivor trust fund. The beneficiary is listed as Noah Williams, age 12. The account holder was Sergeant Marcus E. Williams, deceased February 14, 2025. The words fell into the lobby like stones into still water, sending ripples of shock through the crowd. Caldwell stared at the screen, his mouth working soundlessly. Officer Davis turned to Noah, and his expression had shifted completely. Son, I'm sorry. This should never have happened. But before anyone could say anything else, Caldwell's voice cut through the moment, sharp and desperate. This doesn't change anything. He still should have had proper identification. He still violated protocol by. Enough. The voice came from the entrance, and it carried a weight that made everyone in the lobby freeze. A woman in surgical scrubs stood in the doorway, her face a mask of barely controlled fury. She was petite but commanded the space like a general surveying a battlefield. Dr. Diane Williams had arrived. And behind her, stepping through the doors with a grim expression and a tailored suit that made Caldwell's look cheap, was Marcus Peterson, Executive Vice President of Metropolitan Trust's entire regional division. The temperature in the lobby seemed to drop 10 degrees. Diane's eyes found Noah immediately. Her nephew was still standing near the counter, surrounded by police officers and scattered papers, his face wet with tears. Noah. Her voice cracked on his name. She crossed the lobby in seconds, dropping to her knees in front of him, her hands cupping his face. Are you hurt? Did anyone touch you? Noah shook his head, unable to speak, and collapsed into her arms, sobbing against her shoulder. Diane held him for a moment, her hand stroking his hair, whispering words meant only for him. Then she stood, and when she turned to face Caldwell, her expression was murder. Marcus Peterson stepped forward, his voice calm but carrying an edge that could cut glass. "Stephen Caldwell. My office. Now." Caldwell's face had gone from pale to grey. "Mr. Peterson, I can explain. Now." But Diane wasn't done. She walked toward Caldwell slowly, deliberately, and when she spoke, every word was ice. "That's my nephew. The son of my brother, Sergeant Marcus Williams, who died saving 4 men in Kabul. The boy whose father spent 3 years saving every penny of hazard pay and deployment bonuses to make sure his son could go to college." She stopped inches from Caldwell's face. "And you called the police on him?" The lobby was so quiet you could hear the ventilation system humming. "You didn't check his account. You didn't verify his story. You just looked at a 12-year-old black boy in second-hand clothes and decided he was a criminal." Caldwell tried to speak, but no words came out. Marcus Peterson's voice cut through the tension. "Security, escort Mr. Caldwell to my office. Everyone else." He looked around the lobby at the watching crowd. "You may want to stay, because what happens next is going to change how this bank operates forever." The black Mercedes S-Class came out of nowhere, tires screeching as it swerved to the curb outside Metropolitan Trust Bank with such force the pedestrians on the sidewalk jumped back in alarm. The engine was still running when the driver's door flew open. Dr. Diane Williams emerged like a storm given human form. She was still in her surgical scrubs, pale blue, wrinkled from hours in the OR, with a coffee stain on the sleeve she hadn't had time to notice. Her hair, usually pulled back in a neat bun, was coming loose in strands around her face. Her surgical mask dangled from one ear. She didn't care. She'd been 3 hours into a complex procedure when her phone started vibrating in her locker. The scrub nurse who finally checked it had gone pale and interrupted the surgery. Lincoln Middle School called. Noah never arrived after lunch. They gave him permission to go to the bank. His not answering his phone. Diane had handed off the operation to her colleague without a word and run. Now she stood on the sidewalk, her eyes scanning frantically until they landed on the bench outside the bank. Noah. He was huddled on the cold metal bench, his body curled into itself, the envelope clutched against his chest like a shield. His face was buried in his knees, his shoulders shaking with sobs that tore through the afternoon air. And people were walking past him. A businessman in a suit glanced at the crying child and checked his watch, walking faster. A woman with a stroller crossed to the other side of the sidewalk, pulling her child closer. 2 teenagers pointed and whispered, one of them filming on his phone. No one stopped. No one asked if he was okay. Noah. Diane's voice cracked on his name. She ran toward him, her shoes slapping against the pavement. Noah's head jerked up. For a split second, his face was blank with shock, and then it crumpled completely. Aunt Diane. He launched himself off the bench and into her arms, nearly knocking her backward with the force of his momentum. His arms locked around her waist, his face pressed into her shoulder, and the sobs that tore out of him were the kind that came from somewhere deep and broken. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Sure, baby, sure. Diane wrapped her arms around him, one hand cradling the back of his head, the other pressed against his back, holding him like she could physically shield him from whatever had happened. You didn't do anything wrong. You hear me? Nothing. They called me a liar. They said I stole. They called the police, Aunt Diane. They said I was trying to. What? Diane pulled back just enough to see Noah's face. His eyes were swollen and red, his cheeks wet with tears, his lips trembling so hard he could barely speak. They didn't believe me. I showed them the card. I showed them everything, but Mr. Caldwell said I was, he said. His voice broke completely. He couldn't finish. Diane's hands cupped his face, her thumbs wiping away tears that just kept coming. Tell me exactly what happened. From the beginning. Noah tried. He stumbled through the story, walking into the bank, approaching the counter, Caldwell's immediate hostility. The accusations. The crowd. The public humiliation. Being called a fraud, a scammer, a thief. The police being called. With every word, Diane's expression changed. The fear drained away. The relief at finding him safe hardened into something else entirely. By the time Noah got to the part about being questioned by the officers, Diane's face had transformed into something carved from ice and fury. "Where's the card now?" "Mr. Caldwell has it. He took it. He wouldn't give it back." "And the police? They made him check the account. The lady at the computer saw it was real. But then you came, Anne." Diane stood slowly, her hand still on Noah's shoulder. She looked at the glass doors of Metropolitan Trust Bank, and her eyes could have melted steel. "Stay close to me." She took Noah's hand and walked toward the entrance. Her stride was purposeful, controlled, each step carrying the weight of years of fighting through medical school as one of the only black women in her class, years of proving herself in operating rooms where people assumed she was the nurse, years of refusing to be diminished. The automatic doors slid open. The lobby was still in chaos. Police officers near the counter, customers clustered in groups whispering to each other, Caldwell standing near Jennifer's station looking like a man watching his career circle the drain. The moment Diane stepped through those doors, everything changed. She wasn't tall, barely 5'4", but she carried herself like she owned the building. Her surgical scrubs, which should have looked out of place in the polished marble lobby, somehow gave her an air of authority that made people instinctively step aside. Jennifer saw her first. The teller's eyes went wide, and she grabbed the arm of her colleague. "Oh my God. That's Dr. Williams." The whisper spread like wildfire. "Dr. Williams is here. From the advisory board. Why is she in scrubs?" Caldwell turned, and the blood drained from his face when he saw who was walking toward him with a 12-year-old boy at her side. Officer Davis recognized the shift in atmosphere immediately. He stepped forward, his hand raised. I'm Officer Davis. Are you?" "Dr. Diane Williams." Her voice cut through the lobby like a scalpel. "That's my nephew." She didn't stop walking. She moved past the officer, past the gawking customers, straight toward Caldwell with the inevitability of a verdict being read. Caldwell held up his hands, his professional smile flickering to life like a dying light bulb. "Dr. Williams, there's been a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Diane stopped 3 feet away from him. Noah pressed against her side, one hand gripping her scrub top. "You called the police on my 12-year-old nephew. You accused him of fraud. You humiliated him in front of your entire staff and customer base." She took one step closer. "And you never once checked if he was telling the truth." "I was following protocol." "Protocol." Diane's voice rose, and people in the back of the lobby turned to stare. "Your protocol is to treat children like criminals? Your protocol is to racially profile a boy in second-hand clothes and assume he's a thief?" "I never said anything about race." "You didn't have to." The lobby rang with her fury. Even the police officers looked uncomfortable. "You took one look at my nephew and decided what he was. And you didn't even have the professional courtesy to verify his account before you traumatized a child." Caldwell's mouth opened and closed. His face was red, veins standing out on his forehead. "Dr. Williams, I apologize if you feel." "If I feel." She turned to Officer Davis. "Officer, I want a formal complaint filed. False accusation. Harassment of a minor. And I want a full investigation into this branch's discriminatory practices." With all due respect, that's not really under our jurisdiction." "Then I'll make it under someone's jurisdiction." Diane pulled out her phone, her fingers already moving across the screen. "I'm calling Marcus Peterson. He's the executive vice president of this entire region. And he's going to want to know why one of his branch managers just created a lawsuit that's going to cost this bank millions." Caldwell went white. "Wait, Dr. Williams, Please, let's talk about this. The phone was already at her ear. It rang twice. Marcus, it's Diane. I need you at the 4th and Main branch immediately. A pause. They called the police on Noah. My Noah. Marcus's nephew. Her voice cracked on those last words, the fury giving way for just a moment to the devastation underneath. They called my brother's son a thief and threw him out on the street. Another pause. She was listening, her jaw tight. Yes. I'm here now. And Marcus. She looked at Caldwell, and her eyes were merciless. Bring the termination paperwork. She ended the call. The lobby was silent except for the classical music still playing softly through the speakers, absurdly cheerful against the tension. Caldwell tried one more time, his voice desperate. Dr. Williams, I'm sure we can resolve this internally. There's no need to involve. You involved the police. Diane's voice was quiet now, which somehow made it more terrifying. You involved them the moment you decided my nephew looked like a criminal. So now I'm involving everyone. Corporate. Legal. The press. Every single person who needs to know that Metropolitan Trust Bank called the cops on a 12-year-old boy for the crime of being black in a nice building. The glass doors opened again. Marcus Peterson stood in the entrance, and even from across the lobby, you could see the fury radiating off him in waves. He was a tall man, imposing, with silver hair and a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. He took in the scene with a single sweep of his eyes. The police officers, the crowd, Caldwell's panicked expression, Diane standing in her surgical scrubs with Noah pressed against her side. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but carried to every corner of the lobby. Stephen Caldwell. My office. Now. But Diane wasn't done. She looked at the crowd, all the customers who had watched, all the employees who had said nothing, all the people who had let this happen. I want everyone to see this. I want everyone to remember this moment. She pulled the crumpled envelope from Noah's hands and held it up. My brother, Sergeant Marcus Williams, died serving this country. He saved 4 men in Kabul and took a bullet that should have killed them. Before he deployed, he opened an account at this bank because your manager. She pointed at Caldwell. Personally assured him it was a place that valued honor and dignity. She pulled out the letter, her hands shaking as she unfolded it. And this is what you did to his son. The silence was absolute. Marcus Peterson's voice cut through it like a blade. Everyone in this lobby, customers, employees, everyone, you're going to want to hear what comes next. Because what happens in the next 10 minutes is going to change how this institution operates forever. He turned to Caldwell. And you're going to wish you'd shown that boy the same dignity his father died defending. Marcus Peterson didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Jennifer. The teller jumped in her seat, her hand flying to her chest. Why yes, Mr. Peterson. Pull up account number 4177-8829-3304 on the main display monitor. The one everyone can see. Jennifer's eyes darted to Caldwell, then back to Marcus. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Sir, I already verified that the account exists. I told Mr. Caldwell. I don't want you to verify it. I want you to display it. On the screen that faces the lobby. So every single person in this building can see exactly what Stephen Caldwell was too prejudiced to look at. The word prejudiced landed like a bomb. Caldwell's face flushed crimson. Now wait just a minute. You don't speak. Marcus's voice dropped to a register that made the air itself feel heavy. You don't move. You don't defend yourself. You stand there, and you watch what you did. He turned to Jennifer. Pull it up. Jennifer's hands shook as she typed. The large monitor mounted on the wall behind the teller stations, the one usually displaying stock tickers and promotional materials, flickered to life. The account screen loaded, and everyone in the lobby could see it. Metropolitan Trust Bank Military Survivor Trust Fund. Account number 4177-8829-3304 account holder, deceased SGT Marcus Elijah Williams. Date of death, February 14, 2025. Beneficiary, Noah Williams. Date of birth, March 3, 2013. Age, 12. Current balance, $327,450. The number sat on the screen in bold black font. Impossible to ignore, impossible to deny. $327,450. The lobby erupted in gasps and whispers. Oh my God. That's real. He was telling the truth the whole time. Caldwell stared at the screen like it was written in a language he couldn't comprehend. His mouth opened and closed soundlessly, his face cycling through emotions so fast they blurred together. Shock, disbelief, horror, dawning realization. Diane's voice cut through the murmurs, quiet and surgical. $327,000. She stepped forward, Noah still pressed against her side, his tear-stained face turned toward the screen displaying his father's final gift. That's 12 years of deployment bonuses. 12 years of hazard pay. 12 years of my brother saving every penny he could while he lived in barracks and atomies and sent money home to make sure his son would have a future. Her voice grew stronger, filling the lobby. Marcus didn't buy new cars. He didn't take vacations. He didn't buy himself anything except what he absolutely needed. Because every dollar he saved was a dollar for Noah's college fund. Every dollar was a promise that his son would have opportunities he never had. She turned to face Caldwell directly, and her eyes were weapons. And you looked at his son, his 12-year-old son, and decided he was a criminal. You didn't check the account. You didn't verify his story. You just saw a black boy in second-hand clothes and assumed the worst. I was trying to protect the bank. Protect it from what? Diane's voice rose to a shout. From a child accessing his own inheritance? From a boy trying to honor his dead father's wishes? She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper, the edges worn soft from being handled countless times. Noah recognized it immediately. It was the letter that had been with his father's will, the one Aunt Diane had shown him on the night they learned about the account. This is the letter Marcus wrote before his final deployment. Her voice cracked, but she steadied herself. He wrote it in case he didn't come home. And he didn't. She unfolded it slowly, carefully, like it might disintegrate in her hands. The lobby had gone so quiet that the sound of the paper rustling was clearly audible. Diane began to read. To my son, Noah. Her voice broke on his name. She took a breath and continued. If you're reading this, it means I'm not there to help you read it myself. I'm sorry, buddy. I wanted to be there for your first day of middle school, your first date, your graduation. I wanted to teach you how to drive and embarrass you in front of your prom date and cry at your wedding. Noah's shoulders began to shake. Diane's arm tightened around him. I saved every penny I could because I wanted you to go to college. I wanted you to become anything you wanted, doctor, lawyer, teacher, artist, whatever makes your heart sing. I didn't get that chance, Noah. I had to join the army because there was no other way out. But you're going to have choices. Tears were streaming down Diane's face now, but she kept reading, her voice steady and clear. I opened an account at Metropolitan Trust because the manager there, Mr. Caldwell, promised me it was a bank that treated every customer with dignity and respect, no matter who they were or where they came from. He looked me in the eye and told me that when you were old enough to access this account, they would take care of you like family. The lobby went deathly silent. Every eye turned to Caldwell. His face had gone from red to ash gray. He looked like he might be sick. Diane's voice turned to ice. Take care of you like family. Those were his exact words. He shook my hand. He thanked me for my service. And he promised. She lowered the letter and looked at Caldwell with such contempt it was almost physical. You promised a dying soldier that you would take care of his son. And today, you threw that son out of this bank like garbage. I didn't know. You didn't ask. Diane's shout echoed off the marble walls. You didn't check. You didn't verify. You didn't do the bare minimum of your job because you looked at my nephew and decided he wasn't worth your time. Marcus Peterson stepped forward, his presence commanding immediate attention. Stephen Caldwell. His voice was formal now, the kind used for official business. Effective immediately, your employment with Metropolitan Trust Bank is terminated. Caldwell's knees buckled. He grabbed the edge of the counter to steady himself. Mr. Peterson, please, I made a mistake. I can fix this. A mistake is miscalculating interest. A mistake is misplacing a file. Marcus's voice was granite. What you did was racially profile a child, accuse him of fraud without a shred of evidence, call the police on him, and traumatize him in front of a lobby full of witnesses. That's not a mistake. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. And a moral failure I won't tolerate in any employee under my supervision. He pulled a phone from his pocket. Security is on their way to escort you from the premises. You'll surrender your access badge, your keys, and any bank property in your possession. HR will contact you regarding your final paycheck and COBRA benefits. Please, I have a mortgage. I have kids in college. So did Sergeant Williams. Marcus's voice was merciless. He had a son he wanted to send to college. And you humiliated that son for the crime of existing while black in your bank. Caldwell's legs gave out completely. He sank to his knees on the marble floor, his hands clasped together in front of him like a supplicant. Dr. Williams, please, I'm begging you, I'll apologize to Noah, I'll do anything. Diane looked down at him with an expression that could freeze fire. You want to apologize? Fine. Apologize. Caldwell turned to Noah, tears streaming down his face, his professional veneer shattered completely. Noah, I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please. Look at him. Diane's voice cut through Caldwell's rambling. Really look at him. Look at what you did to a 12-year-old child. Everyone in the lobby looked at Noah. The boy's face was swollen from crying. His eyes were red and hollow. His hands trembled where they gripped his aunt's scrub top. He looked smaller than 12, younger than he should, broken in a way that would take years to heal. And he was staring at Caldwell with an expression that wasn't anger or hatred. It was something worse. It was the look of a child who had learned, in the cruelest way possible, that the world was not fair. That being good and honest and truthful wasn't always enough. That sometimes, people would look at you and decide who you were before you even opened your mouth. Caldwell saw that look and began to sob. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean, I didn't think. No. You didn't. Marcus gestured to the security guards who had just entered the lobby. Different guards, not the ones who had been there earlier. Escort Mr. Caldwell to his office to collect his personal belongings, then remove him from the premises. As the guards moved to lift Caldwell to his feet, Marcus turned to address the entire lobby. I want every employee and every customer to understand something. What happened here today can never happen again. He pointed to Noah. This child walked into our bank with legitimate documentation, and he was treated like a criminal because of how he looked. Because of the color of his skin. Because of assumptions made by a manager who valued appearances over humanity. His voice grew harder. Metropolitan Trust Bank will be implementing mandatory anti-bias training for all employees, effective immediately. We will be establishing the Marcus Williams Protocol. Any customer complaint regarding discriminatory treatment will be investigated by an independent third party. And we will be creating a scholarship fund in Sergeant Williams' name to ensure his legacy is one of opportunity, not humiliation. He turned to Diane and Noah. Dr. Williams, I cannot apologize enough for what happened to your nephew today. On behalf of Metropolitan Trust, I offer our deepest apologies and our commitment to make this right. Diane's expression didn't soften. Making it right starts with making sure it never happens to another child. To anyone. Agreed. Marcus knelt down in front of Noah, his expensive suit wrinkling on the marble floor. Noah, I'm sorry we failed you today. Your father trusted us, and we broke that trust. I hope. His voice caught. I hope someday you can forgive us. Noah stared at him for a long moment. Then, in a voice so quiet it was almost a whisper, he spoke. My dad always said everyone deserves a second chance. Even people who don't deserve it. The words hit the lobby like a thunderclap. Marcus nodded slowly, blinking back tears. Your father was a better man than most of us will ever be. He stood and turned to the crowd. This bank is closed for the rest of the day. Everyone please exit except essential personnel. We have a lot of work to do. As people began to file out, murmuring to each other, Jennifer approached Noah hesitantly. Noah, I'm so sorry. I should have said something. I should have stopped him. Noah looked at her, and for the first time since entering the bank, his expression changed. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't anger. It was understanding. You were scared. Jennifer's face crumpled. That's not an excuse. No, Diane agreed coldly. It's not. She guided Noah toward the exit, but before they reached the doors, she turned back one final time. Everyone who stood silent today needs to ask themselves one question. What would you have done if that was your child on the floor, crying and alone? The question hung in the air as they walked out into the afternoon sunlight. And inside Metropolitan Trust Bank, in the silence that followed, everyone was forced to confront an answer they didn't want to face. The glass doors of Metropolitan Trust Bank closed behind Diane and Noah with a soft hydraulic hiss, sealing them off from the chaos inside. The afternoon sun felt too bright, the street sounds too loud after the marble-enclosed silence of the lobby. Noah's legs gave out. He sank onto the same cold metal bench where he'd been sitting less than an hour ago, crying and alone, waiting for police who thought he was a criminal. The same bench where strangers had walked past without stopping. But this time, Aunt Diane sat beside him. She didn't say anything at first. She just wrapped her arm around his shoulders and pulled him close, letting him cry into her scrubs until the fabric was soaked through. Her other hand stroked his hair, the way she used to when he was small and had nightmares about losing his dad. The nightmares had come true 8 months ago. And today, he'd almost lost his father's final gift. Behind them, through the glass doors, they could see movement inside the bank. Marcus Peterson was addressing the remaining staff, his gestures sharp and emphatic. Jennifer sat at her station with her head in her hands. 2 security guards flanked Stephen Caldwell as he collected items from his office, his movements mechanical, defeated. Noah watched the man who had called him a thief, who had humiliated him in front of dozens of people, who had made him feel smaller than he'd ever felt in his life. And he felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not vindication. Not even anger anymore. Just emptiness. Aunt Diane. His voice was hoarse from crying. Why did he hate me? Diane's hand stilled in his hair. She was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice was careful, measured, like she was choosing each word with surgical precision. He didn't hate you, baby. He didn't even know you. Then why? Because he looked at you and saw what he expected to see. He saw your skin color and your clothes and made a decision about who you were before you ever opened your mouth. She turned him gently so she could see his face. And that's not about you, Noah. That's about him. That's about fear and ignorance and a world that taught him to judge people by what they look like instead of who they are. But Dad always said if you're honest and respectful, people will treat you fairly. Diane's eyes filled with tears. Your dad believed that because he wanted it to be true. Because he wanted you to grow up in a world better than the one he knew. She pulled the crumpled envelope from her pocket and carefully smoothed out the papers inside. The bank statement, the account card, and the letter. Noah, I need to tell you something about your father. Something I should have told you before you came here today. She took a shaky breath. Your dad's biggest fear wasn't dying in combat. He knew that was a risk. He accepted it. She unfolded the letter again, but this time she didn't read from it. She just held it, her thumb tracing the words her brother had written. His biggest fear was that he would die and you would grow up thinking he didn't love you. That he abandoned you. That you weren't worth fighting for. Noah's throat closed up. He talked to me about it every time he came home on leave. He would sit in my kitchen at 2 in the morning, drinking coffee he didn't need, worrying about what would happen to you if he didn't make it back. She pointed to the bank. That money in there? That's not just money, Noah. That's every deployment bonus your dad earned. Every hazard paycheck. Every extra shift he volunteered for. Every time he re-enlisted for another tour when he could have come home. Her voice cracked. He lived in barracks that were barely better than shipping containers. He ate food that came out of bags. He wore the same 3 shirts when he wasn't in uniform. He never bought himself anything nice, never took a vacation, never spent a dime he didn't absolutely have to spend. Tears were streaming down her face now. Because every dollar he saved was a dollar for you. Every penny was a promise that you would have choices he never had. That you could be anything you wanted to be. She took his hands in hers. Your father's greatest act of love wasn't dying for his country, Noah. It was living for you. Every single day, for 12 years, he woke up and chose to sacrifice so you could have a future. Noah looked down at the envelope in his lap, at his father's handwriting on the letter, at the bank card with both their names on it. SGT Marcus Elijah Williams, Noah Williams. Father and son. I miss him, Noah whispered. I know, baby. I miss him too. They sat together on that bench for a long time, watching the sun move across the sky, watching people walk past on their way to wherever people go on a Thursday afternoon. Inside the bank, Stephen Caldwell emerged from his office carrying a cardboard box, the universal symbol of termination. The security guards walked him to a side exit, away from the main entrance. He didn't look at Noah as he passed. But Noah looked at him. And in that moment, he understood something his father had tried to teach him in 100 different ways. That being right doesn't always feel like winning, and that justice doesn't erase the hurt that came before it. Diane stood, pulling Noah to his feet. Come on. Let's go home. What about the account? Marcus is having all your documentation couriered to our house. We'll come back next week when things have calmed down. When there are different people behind those counters. Noah nodded, but as they walked toward Aunt Diane's car, he turned back one last time to look at the bank. Metropolitan Trust Bank. The place his father had trusted. The place that had broken that trust. And the place that would have to earn it back. 3 years later. Noah Williams pushed through the glass doors of Metropolitan Trust Bank on a Saturday afternoon in late September, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his first paycheck from his part-time job at the library folded carefully in his pocket. He was 15 now, taller, broader in the shoulders, his voice deeper. But he still wore second-hand clothes, by choice now, not necessity. And on his feet were a pair of worn Converse sneakers, not the same ones from 3 years ago, but similar enough to feel like a statement. I'm still me. You don't get to define me. The lobby looked different. Brighter, somehow. More welcoming. There were comfortable chairs near the windows now, and artwork on the walls, paintings by local students, including one by a girl from Noah's school. And behind the counter, a new manager stood greeting customers. She was a black woman in her 40s with natural hair pulled back in a professional bun and a smile that actually reached her eyes. Good afternoon. Welcome to Metropolitan Trust. How can I help you today? Hi, Ms. Patterson. I'd like to make a deposit, please. The manager's face lit up with recognition. Noah, good to see you. How's school? I heard you made honor roll again. Noah felt warmth spread through his chest. She remembered his name. She remembered him. Yes, 4th quarter in a row. Your father would be so proud. She said it without awkwardness, without pity, just simple truth. Noah smiled. Thank you. I think he would be too. As Ms. Patterson processed his deposit, $247.50, 2 weeks of shelving books and helping elderly patrons find large print mysteries, Noah's eyes drifted to the wall behind the teller stations. There, mounted in a simple black frame between the promotional posters for savings accounts and investment services, was a small brass plaque. In memory of Sergeant Marcus Elijah Williams, February 14, 1987 to February 14, 2025. Every customer deserves dignity. The Marcus Williams Protocol. Verify before you judge. Noah had seen it before, had been there when they unveiled it 6 months after that terrible day, but it still made his throat tight. Your deposit is complete, Ms. Patterson said gently, sliding the receipt across the counter. You're doing great, Noah. Building your savings just like your dad taught you. Actually, I'm splitting it. Half in savings, half in the scholarship fund. Ms. Patterson's eyebrows rose. The Marcus Williams Memorial Scholarship? Noah, you don't have to. I want to. He meant it. The scholarship fund that Marcus Peterson had established now sent 3 students to college every year. Kids from neighborhoods where college seemed impossible, kids who needed the same chance his father had wanted to give him. Kids who might otherwise walk into a bank and be judged by their shoes. All right then. That's very generous of you. As she processed the additional transaction, Noah glanced around the lobby. It was busy today. Families, elderly couples, young professionals. And he saw something that would have been impossible 3 years ago. A young black kid, maybe 10 years old, standing at the counter with his grandmother. His shoes were worn. His jacket was too big. And the teller was smiling at him, patient and kind, as he carefully counted out coins from his piggy bank to make his first deposit. No one was staring. No one was whispering. No one was assuming the worst. Noah. He turned back to Ms. Patterson. All set. Both deposits processed. And Noah. Yes, Your father would be proud of the young man you're becoming. Not just because of your grades or your job or your generosity. She leaned forward slightly, her voice warm and sincere. But because you came back. After what happened to you in this building, you could have taken your business anywhere. But you came back and gave us a chance to do better. Noah's eyes stung, but he blinked the tears away. My dad always said everyone deserves a second chance. Even institutions that don't deserve it. Wise man. The best. Noah folded the receipt and tucked it into his wallet, the same wallet that now held his school ID, his library employee badge, and a photo of his father in dress uniform. As he turned to leave, a man in an expensive suit approached the counter, looking impatient and annoyed. He cut in front of an elderly woman, barely glancing at her. Ms. Patterson's voice was polite but firm. Excuse me, sir. This customer was next in line. The man huffed. I'm in a hurry. I'm sure she won't mind. I mind. Ms. Patterson's smile never wavered, but her tone carried steel. We serve our customers in the order they arrive. Please wait your turn. The man's face reddened, but he stepped back, muttering under his breath. The elderly woman smiled gratefully and stepped up to the counter. Noah caught Ms. Patterson's eye. She winked at him. Every customer deserves dignity. He pushed through the glass doors into the September sunshine, the warmth hitting his face like an embrace. His phone buzzed in his pocket, a text from Aunt Diane asking if he wanted Chinese food for dinner. He typed back a quick yes and started walking toward the bus stop. At home, in his bedroom, there was a shadow box mounted on the wall above his desk. Inside it, preserved behind glass, were his father's dog tags, a folded American flag, and a pair of scuffed Converse sneakers with frayed laces and cracked soles. The shoes he'd been wearing that day. He'd wanted to throw them away, wanted to burn them, wanted to erase every reminder of the worst day of his life. But Aunt Diane had stopped him. Those shoes carried you through the hardest thing you've ever faced, she'd said. They're a reminder that you survived. That you stood your ground. That you didn't let anyone's judgment define your worth. so he'd kept them. And on mornings when he felt small, when he felt like the world was too big and too cruel and too ready to judge him, he looked at those shoes and remembered. Worth is never determined by appearance. Love is measured in sacrifice. And dignity is something you carry with you, not something anyone else can give or take away. Noah Williams stood at the bus stop, a 15-year-old boy with his father's eyes and his father's courage and his father's belief that the world could be better. And he smiled. Because he was living proof that his father's sacrifice hadn't been in vain. That love, real love, echoes forward through generations. And that sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is show up, stand your ground, and refuse to let anyone tell you who you are. The bus pulled up. Noah climbed aboard. And he carried his father's legacy with every step. The end. If this story moved you, hit like, share it with someone, and subscribe for more. Turn on notifications so you'll be the first to know when I drop another unforgettable story like this. If underdog stories like this one resonate with you, take a moment to check our channel. You'll find a full catalog of powerful underdog stories, stories of the overlooked, the silenced, and the underestimated who rise and triumph. Thank you for watching.